Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Scruton and with me is Susan Dugan, and this is Parents, Children and Miracles. And tonight we're going to discuss being an adult child and applying forgiveness as it's laid out in A Course in Miracles. So we'll just wait for people to join the webinar and then we'll get started. So I'm not seeing anyone here. So
you should have reminded them.
Which is fine. Everyone would have got a reminder email. Oh no, there's people joining now. Okay. Welcome to the people just joining us. I'm Danielle and I'm here with Susan and we're going to be starting shortly. Sorry, I'm reading Bruce's comments. Infinite patience for immediate results. I see you guys now. It's just my my little counter at the bottom was slow to start. So let's get started. Again, welcome. We're here to talk about Parents, Children and Miracles. And tonight the focus is going to be on the second part of Ken's book, Part 2, which focuses on the relationship with our parents as adult children. So I think this is a topic that we can all relate to. So let's get started. So I just want to start by welcoming Susan Dugan back. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, thanks. It's nice to be here, Danielle.
And so Susan and I had talked briefly last month about how we wanted to do tonight, and we thought we would start with the authority problem. And Susan, did you want to just briefly explain that, what Ken talks about what he means when he talks about the authority problem?
Sure. Well, it's a problem I know well. We all know well. From the Course's perspective, though, the authority problem is a little different than how we think of it in the world, like everything else. From the Course's perspective, we all have an authority problem with God, basically over, that our original tiny mad idea, believing that we could separate from God or would want to, and that we could create a different will than God's is kind of at the root of all of our problems. And so, because we believe that we really did create a different reality from God, we kind of reenact that in all of our relationships. So we're always acting out in our relationships some form of that authority problem, in which we're constantly trying to make up for the belief that we really did separate from God, and to prove the ego's mantra that I really do exist, but it's not my fault.
Right.
It's someone else's, and so we're always in competition with others. We're always in we're always acting out with anyone that we perceive to be an authority is a replacement, a substitute for God in our eyes. And so we always are, again, trying to proclaim our independence from any authority. And because that is unresolved within us, we project it outward. And so, really that's why we come here, is to act out our authority problem. And so the first place that we do that is we're born to parents who immediately cannot meet all of our needs. And so we immediately have an authority problem with our parents. And there's this constant, they have more control than they have more power than we do, they have more control than we do. We come in extremely needy and needing from them, and are constant, as Ken says in his in this book and in so many of his teachings, that we're like need machines. So we're always trying to to proclaim our authority. And so when we you know, we're always as with our parents, we're always trying to kind of make up for that, you know, for the fact that we feel so that we can't meet all of our needs, and that we feel so you know, not powerful. And then we carry that, you know, we believe that the way that our parents don't meet our needs is the reason that we grow up to be damaged and we have problems in our relationships, and we're always pointing a finger at our parents for that. So you know, we will believe that the reason that I'm anxious today, the reason I'm depressed today, the reason I have problems today is because of how I was raised, that my parents didn't meet my needs, or my psychological and often physical, or they downright abused me. And we kind of walk around with a chip on our shoulder, and you know, kind of go off into the world, either sort of, you know, half-cocked, trying to kind of bully other people, become authoritarian with other people, or we're so uncomfortable with our authority that we won't assume any authority, and we become sort of passive aggressive. And you know, that carries over into how we parent, that carries over into our boss and employee relationships, it carries it over into our marriages, it carries it over into every relationship. So so the template for that authority problem that we have with God, on the level that we find ourselves in here in the world, is the parent-child relationship.
So as far as being an adult child and having that role reversal, is it more than like there's a bit of discomfort or even rejection on the part of the parent at seeing your child being able to make decisions for themselves, and then, you know, at some point even helping to make decisions for you?
Right. Well, I mean, as parents, we either smother our children or we try to control them in every way. And you know, as we and you know, once we are grown children, you know, we are interacting with our parents in as a result of whatever you know, however what style that they parented us. But so we'll feel, if our parents were very controlling with us, we usually rebel and don't want to have any, you know, don't want them to have any control with us. I mean, to the point that you know, often we have no relationship with our parents. We just, you know, we sever the relationship. Or our, you know, our parents may have taken the other approach and not you know, not tried to control us at all, but then we interpret that as a sense of abandonment. And so, you know, I'm the way I am today because my parents didn't you know, didn't raise me with any boundaries or whatever. So on any side of that, as an adult, we're still acting that out, and we act it out in our other relationships. And then as we begin, as our parents age and those roles begin to reverse, which inevitably they do, you know, at some point we are called upon often to come back into that parent relationship in a way that, you know, where we have to really engage with them in a way to begin, when they become infirm, when they become unable to, you know, to have control over their own lives in the same way. As a result of aging, then very often we have to come back into it, and all of that has not really been healed. And so we have another chance to come back into the relationship and, you know, and change the purpose of it, to really, you know, begin to heal the past that we've been clinging to, all of the, you know, the what we've been carrying about our parents, and the ways in which we think that we were mistreated or not given all that we needed from our parents. You know, we have another kind of interaction with them over time in which to heal our minds and change the purpose of that. And often our parents become, you know, there is a role reversal. Our parents become needy in you know, ways, they can't take care of themselves in ways. And so in many ways they become the child. And, you know, anything that's unhealed from the past will have to be looked at, or, I mean, or not. And if it's not looked at, it's just, you know, you're doing all the you're going through the motions of parenting your parents and taking care of them, and maybe having to help them out with all of the health problems they have, with relocating them, with their financial stuff, if they may not be able to pay their bills. I mean, all the things that can happen with parents, and you're going to have to become involved in that, but you do it out of guilt, and no healing really happens. You're still carrying around the all of the reasons that you think that all the blame that you're putting on your parents for why you're not okay today. And you'll have an attitude of you didn't parent me right when I was a kid, and now I'm left to take care of you. So it's the same old victimized story. And from the Course's perspective, we have a chance to really change our minds about that. Allow this to be about healing, and to see that our parents share, beyond the superficial inequality, just like the superficial inequality with our children, share the same need that we have, the need of every heart to heal their minds about, about the belief that they threw God's love away. And they're trying to go home just like I am. They have an ego, they have a right mind, and they have a decision-making mind. And I can change the purpose of my relationship with them, and this temporary inequality where the roles are reversed, to seeing that we're just both brothers and sisters, with trying to find our way home, just like everybody else, every other frightened child here,
Yeah, it's like that quote. I'm not going to get it exactly from the books, or Ken says, "Love has no sense of duty; it simply is."
Right.
Which goes back to what you were saying about doing something out of guilt or obligation, or again, because it's a way to make yourself separate. You can tell everyone about how you're having to take care of your parents and do all these extra things, in spite of the fact that they were horrible parents when you were a kid, and it becomes either another opportunity to separate yourself and to buy into that story of separation, or to see your parents as brothers and sisters.
Right. And every parent, no parent can meet every need of every child's need. The truth is, it's a setup. We come here basically to be victimized, to prove we exist, but it's not our fault. We need to have victimizers around us, and so that's why we come here. And so no one can meet all of the needs that for bodies that were set up as these need machines. And so even though in form there's some very horrific things, some people are terribly victimized, but everybody to some degree feels that their parents didn't meet all of their needs. And and it's impossible for parents to meet their needs. And parents walk around with horrible guilt often over not meeting, because they weren't able to meet their kids' needs, and feeling that when their grown children are, showing signs of anxiety or having difficulties in their relationships, or, the normal problems of life, parents often feel very responsible for that. We feel responsible for what's wrong with our kids. And, and so on either side of this relationship, there's a lot of guilt. It's just infused in the relationship. So, enter A Course in Miracles, which is really about finding, looking at where that guilt is really coming from, and questioning its cause, and realizing that there's another, there's something else that we can learn here that will free us from this guilt. And, but that requires us to access a part of our mind, this inner presence of love in our mind, that Jesus, Holy Spirit, and to turn to that inner teacher, and to really, begin to look at our lives as a classroom in which the purpose is changing. The purpose is not really so much the outcome of whether my children, behave in certain ways, or how they end up dealing with their, what they end up doing in the world, but the purpose is in learning, us both learning together, that we're still loved, and that nothing that we could do could change God's love for us, you know, and that we're not separate. We're not all separate, and that we all share the same interest of finding our way home, and finding and remembering that you know, that love is not divided, that love you know, cannot be thrown away, and so it doesn't. It's the same with our parents, as you know, as we maybe have to assume some of these responsibilities for our parents that we don't want to. You know, it's not a fun job, but neither is parenting all the time, you know. And so, but on the other hand, you know, it's a way for us to really let this go, let some of this guilt go, and join with our parents at a level beyond these differences in form that, you know, have divided us, and you know, being able to let go of the past, and you know, there's a present joining that can happen, and it doesn't, you know, it may not turn out just like with our children the way we want it to. I mean, I can say from my own experience that my mom, my dad had a stroke 2 years ago. My mom is very resistant. You know, they're having a lot of issues, and they're in a precarious position in a lot of ways. And my mom is extremely resistant to allowing us to even know where their financial stuff is. You know, I mean, she won't speak to us about many of the things that we really need to know, and it's frustrating, you know. And so my brother and I have a brother that's involved in this too, and so, but you know, you can't. So the object is, I mean, I would like that to happen. I would like it if she would do those things, but I can't. But really, that is her choice ultimately. And you know, you work with your parents as much as you can, but your main job is to love them. And if they need help, you help them. And you know, but you have to be loving, and you have to realize that, you know, again, honor the power of their own decision-making mind to choose. And even in form, I mean, it wouldn't be, in my case, it wouldn't be really loving, I finally realized, to try to bully my way, you know, to take that control away. And so everybody is different, and there's different circumstances, and there's no one pat answer in form of how this works for anyone, but it's all working within your mind, with your own inner teacher, about what is, you know, what's really loving right now. You know, am I doing this out of guilt, or am I doing, and you know, again, to make myself feel better, or am I, you know, am I willing to just be open and see where this goes, you know, by being present with my mother and really listening to what's going to her call for love in this, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. This is probably a good time to mention the overriding workshop message that we spoke about, the overriding message of the webinar, which was, I am not responsible for my child or parents' choices, responsible for my reactions and which teacher I choose to look at them with right now.
Right, exactly. And so it's always, I'm responsible for practicing forgiveness, you know, and that is really watching my reactions, and you know, recognizing when I've chosen my ego, which is whenever I'm you know, upset, when I think I'm upset because I don't have the control, I don't have the authority here. And so, you know, from the Course's perspective, it's not about an us or them. It's not you know, who wins the power struggle, but it's about, you know, the healing of our mind, and we share that same interest. You know, again, because we're all really, in whatever disguises we're wearing, are the same frightened child that believes it can never find its way home. You know, that was cast out, that the way we spun it, it was cast out of heaven for separating from God and running away from home, and now isn't welcome back. And you know, that's a lie. And what we really want to learn, the need of every heart, is to learn that that's a lie, and that nothing we have done has changed God's love for us. And, you know, love is waiting for our return. I mean, in truth, we haven't left, but, you know, I mean, that's a very nice way to think about it,
Yeah.
until we remember it.
Absolutely. Bruce is saying kindness requires getting way out of the way. My
Way.
way out of the way. And Erica is saying we are only satisfied with the eternal. So just if anyone has any comments that they would like to make, go ahead and put them in the chat, and some questions as well. We're going to use next session for sharing mostly, but if you do want to share something briefly, we can touch on that. Katie's saying, my father abused me and I abused my kids. Now I want to forgive and heal the guilt with my parents and children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's huge. And you know, again, from the Course's perspective, really it's always about present healing. And so it's you know, the value, the kind use of the past, the Holy Spirit's use of the past, is really just to bring it to the present, you know, to bring it to practice forgiveness. And so there is no real past, you know, there's no, in truth, there's no time. Time was an invention of the egos to play out this this game of victimization, but it's, you know, and to prove that I really do exist, but it's not my fault. And we need the past to point fingers at all of the reasons that we can't be okay now, and why we have to be so fearful of this future. You know, from the Course's perspective, we sinned. It's all an outpicturing of the belief that we sinned in the past against God. We're guilty in the present, and now we have to be afraid of the future. And that's what we're acting out in all our relationships. But the beauty of the Course is that, you know, it isn't, we don't have to carry around forever this guilt from the past. It's you know, right now I can change my mind about it. Right now I can practice forgiveness, and you know, it's whenever feelings and thoughts from the past, guilty thoughts are coming to mind about, in this example that you know, that I was abused, and I also abused by my parents, and I also abused my children. You know, as those feelings come up now, we can work with them, you know, in a very present way with our inner teacher, and really look at, you know, understand why we, you know, that would happen. And because we're always, you know, there's so much guilt here, and it's an abusive thought system, and you know, realize that that we can change, heal our mind about it, and we can heal the we can let go of the guilt around it, and learn through changing the purpose of our relationships to a classroom what it means to be truly loving. And you know, that there's that we don't have to keep repeating the abuse, you know.
Yeah, and I think if you can really surrender what this is going to look like, you know, as far as being able to forgive your father and forgive yourself, and do that work with the Holy Spirit, but not have any sort of preconceived notions of what that's going to look like or how that's going to feel. If you can be open, that's going to be an incredible experience, I think.
Well, and I think that's a good point, because it's not about a specific, you know, if you're in touch with that as your purpose of making forgiveness the purpose of the relationships, then whatever is most loving just kind of flows through you and follows. And you know, if there's something to do that would be loving, that would be healing, or something to say, you know, you'll find it, you'll say it, you'll know it, but it won't be coming from, again, that sense that of terrible guilt, that, you know, where you're in an anxious state trying to figure out what would make this, you know, how can I atone for this, how can I, you know, make it up to them, and you know, which is always coming from that really guilty place. And so it's really it will be coming from our true heart, you know, our true right mind, and that can be only loving for everyone. I mean, it wouldn't exclude you from the equation either. You know, you would recognize that you did, you know, you were scared, and and you know, you acted out the way you were taught, and likely your parents did too, and you know, now you have a chance to make a different choice, you know, and to demonstrate a different choice, and that's healing, and that's powerful, and you know, that's something you can give yourself credit for, you know. Not the little self, but you know, you have a self that is still there, and will never let you down, you know, and you're making a decision to go back to that, to remember that self.
Yeah, we don't have to perpetuate the story. We can stop it in its tracks and find a better way. It reminds me of that lesson in my defenselessness, my safety lies. We don't have to keep defending
right.
Ourselves. We can, you know, find a place of, you know, what was that? Is that a Rumi quote? Out beyond the field of right and wrong. I forget exactly, but I'll meet you there. You know, yeah. This world is all about right and wrong, and you know, while we still have to navigate that, we don't have to buy into it on the level of the mind, and that's how we end suffering. That's how we remember where we truly came from. So.
Well, and compassion, you know, for ourselves, when that returns, when we are aligned with Jesus as our teacher, and accepting that love that's already there, then you know, we have compassion, the same compassion that part of our mind has, that loving presence has for everyone and everything. You know, the understanding that everybody here is suffering from the same misconception that separation is real, and the terrible guilt over that. And so, you know, but everybody shares the same potential to go home and to change their mind and go home, and the same need. And so we would automatically have compassion for our parents, the abuser and the abused, you know, our parents and ourselves, and ourselves if we were the abuser of our children as a result. You know, it's because it's coming from the same fear and the same guilt, and you know, it can be healed right now.
And I think this is maybe an important point to mention, that and we talked about this, Susan, in one of your presentations at the Miracle Share virtual conference, about not skipping steps. You know, we talk about getting to a level of compassion, or getting to a level of making peace with it and not feeling guilty, but to not put the pressure on yourself to be there immediately, and to allow whatever's come up and be present with that, and bring it to the Holy Spirit.
And it's a process. I mean, it's not, that's right. It's a process, and it's not, you know, just as again, the kind use of time, the Holy Spirit's use of time is to make it a classroom of forgiveness. Our relationship's a classroom of forgiveness. And because we have such resistance and fear of you know, going back to the mind, of the guilt that still seems, you know, that is in the mind, over believing that this separation really happened, and we're so afraid to return to that. You know, we've pushed that away, we've dissociated it. So there's a lot of resistance to this, and so it's a process. We have to be patient with ourselves and try to. It's, you know, even though it's a present decision, and right now it can be healed. That's true. But in our experience, it's usually, you know, not instant. It's something that we work with, and certainly our parents and children give us relationships that seem to occur over time in which to work with this, and you know, that's the beauty of that's why there's such enormous potential for healing in this relationship. It's why it's the most difficult classroom, but it's also the most, you know, has the greatest potential for healing. Because we work with it, you know, it's something that is ongoing, and it's our longest relationship over in our lives, usually.
Well, you mentioned at the beginning, it sets the tone for our subsequent relationship.
Absolutely.
You know, we can blame our parents for, you know, if they were divorced, if our parents divorced, we could say, oh, I was never able to maintain a commitment because my parents divorced.
Right.
You know, so I know I didn't have a model of a good marriage, or, you know, we can come up with countless stories.
Right.
But because that's the first relationship. So in essence, it's very easy to blame any sort of disconnect or disorder in any other relationships coming afterwards. You know, on that first relationship, on the problems, on what you didn't, on how they didn't meet your needs, what they didn't do.
Yeah.
And Erica's got a comment here. She says, in some ways, I feel as though my parents wish to still see me in a box they placed around me based on my past. It's hard to pinpoint, but I left the state right after college and have moved back only months ago after being away 13 years. I just wonder if this is common and how you deal. It's almost like you were frozen in time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that happens for a lot of people. You know, I think too that, you know, again, it's really it's that present practice of your reaction to that is really what what we bring to it. You know, is how our parents, you know, how we're perceiving our parents perceiving us. It's our reaction, and that the Course asks us to pay attention to. So, you know, if I'm seeing that as in some way, I mean, I think that's a very common thing, I think, that happens with parents, because parents want to, you know, want to preserve you as their kids too. You know, I mean, it's hard being on both ends of that myself. I kind of understand it, but you know, I think again that you have to, it's all about really just dealing with, you know, am I feeling, if I'm feeling attacked by my parents doing this, then I know that it's my ego getting involved in this, and that it's my own mind in need of healing, and you know, it's my opportunity to practice forgiveness and to give it a different purpose. And you know, again, we're all kind of, even though our parents at one point seemed to be authorities over us, in truth, we're all the same frightened child. You know, that's just a temporary, superficial difference in form, and it's a setup, and so we need to deal with you know, what side of, you know, what our reactions are, and practice the 3 steps of forgiveness that we talked about the week before last, which is, you know, the first is just I'm not upset for the reason I think. This is not the real cause of why I'm reacting, and it really is coming from, you know, that part of me that wants to make the guilt of separation real, and that it's the truth is that no one can take my peace away. You know, no one has power over my mind to take my peace away, to disturb me, to upset me, and you know, and I could see this differently. You know, I'd like to see this differently. Please help me see this differently. You know, sometimes we're saying, please, please, please to Jesus, Holy Spirit, help me to see this differently. But it's just that presence in our mind that does see it differently, but we've forgotten. You know, we've deliberately forgot that presence in our mind that never took the tiny mad idea of separation seriously. And you know, at any moment, we can, when we become reactive, we can be back in school and learning to remember, basically, that we have the same interests, and you know, that our parents are really the same as us in that way. You know.
Yeah, that's a big shift. I'm thinking about that now because I realize that it's easier to see my kids that way because I see them as innocent, if that makes any sense. And it seems to me, I'm just realizing this now as you're talking, it seems to be more difficult as for me to see that with my parents. That's something definitely to talk to Jesus about.
Really true. And I understand what you're saying, because I feel that way to some extent too. I think we all do, because our parents were supposed to be the ones taking care of us, are supposed to be the ones that, you know better, right? Are experienced and all of that. And we have the myth that children come in as little innocents.
Absolutely.
And it's not true, you know. I mean, it's really not true, but that's certainly the way society sees it. and we all see it, you know.
And I think to some extent, and maybe Erica, maybe you feel this way too, but because my parents are still relatively young, they're in their early 60s, and my kids are still young. I think I still have that sort of the remnants of wanting to please them and be a good daughter and good in their eyes. And so it's definitely still a very special relationship. They're on some sort of pedestal.
Right.
Yeah.
And Ken says if we need anything from our parents, including approval, right?
Yeah.
We're not grown up yet, and I think we all still need it. I mean, that's, we're meaning truly grown up, meaning, someone who's in the real world, really, I mean, because we're, to be truly grown up means that you're just not needy at all, really. You don't need someone as a substitute for God's love. You don't need all of that, all the special relationships to make you feel okay about yourself, and yet most of us do need that, or we feel that neediness. And, and I think that a lot of times you'll think it's also common for, I don't know how common it is, but it happens that, people think that they have resolved a lot of the issues that they have with their parents until they're in a situation where the roles reversals begin. And then they realize, like for myself, I kind of thought that I had, that I had grown up around this until a couple of years ago. But really I was not, my parents lived very far away on the near Canada on the East Coast. And it's very hard to get to where they are. So I didn't see them a lot. I would talk to them on the phone, but there was no real, there wasn't a regular interaction in a physical way with them. And when my dad had a stroke a couple of years ago, I had to play a more active role. And it's still fairly distant because they are so far away, and I don't have the time that I can take off to, or money to be there back and forth all the time. But I have a more active role with them, and had to get involved in more ways with their care and some of those things that were happening, and with my brother over it and all of that. And, at that point, you may recognize too that you have a lot of these unresolved issues that, in my case, I thought that I had, I thought they were resolved. And so I would recognize that now I really do have a big forgiveness classroom, because a lot of the things from the past that I didn't even realize I was still carrying have come to the forefront, especially with my mom. And so, it's interesting to see how that comes up for you. And that's what you work with. It's those reactions that we work with.
And are you at a point, I'm just curious, where you're grateful for it? Like, are you grateful? Sometimes I'll see my course friends post on Facebook that they're grateful when, people are unkind or whatever, because they can learn from it. And I understand what they're saying, but it just seems
on my good day, like right after a holy instant, I'm grateful, but
yeah.
It's not fun. If that's you're asking, Danielle. I mean, over the long haul, you are grateful, because you wouldn't have known that you were carrying that. So you can't heal. You can't allow what you don't know is there to be healed. You can't work with Jesus as your teacher if you haven't, if you've repressed it to the point that, so in that way, yes, I think over time, again, when you look at it as a process, when you take the long-term view, yes, I am grateful for it. But I wasn't initially grateful for it, because it was kind of like, well, damn it, who knew all this garbage was still there, So in fact, a lot of it was stuff that I really wasn't ever aware of, the depth to which I was, accusing in my mind things from the past. So I think, but I do think that that's maybe part of the practicing the course, is that it isn't that these things would happen anyway. It's just the way life goes. But my willingness probably to let that come up is part of the practice. And I think that it needs to. If your intention is to heal your mind, then whatever whatever guilt you're repressing and whatever grievances you're holding tend to kind of work their way up, and they have, the ego survives in concealment, and so I think there is something to be grateful for there. Yes, I think over in the larger sense, I am grateful.
Yeah. Bruce is making a few jokes here, so I'll just read
them. Yeah.
He says, neediness maintains a separate identity, ego's insecurity blanket.
Very good. Yeah.
And then he was joking about my question there, saying masochism is gratitude. Yeah.
Bruce, if there's anything he'd like to share from his own, I know he's had a classroom going.
Yeah, that's a good point. If anyone would like to enter the room, you can raise your hand, and you can come on screen with us here, or you're welcome to share in the chat, or you can wait until next week, when that's pretty much what we'll be doing exclusively is sharing. So, and Erica's saying, once you recognize it, you can be grateful for noticing it. Yes. Yeah. After your initial reaction.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it isn't that, that forgiveness it does, again, it's a process, and it usually isn't an instant changing your mind, and feeling like the peace. You're not, for me at least, it isn't that I just, ask to see this differently, question the cause of say I'm not upset for the reason I think, and I could see peace and ask for help and immediately experience help. Because again, there's this resistance that we're not aware of at work here too. And so the process can be painful at times. But on the other hand, but once I do return to peace, every time we do that, the Course reassures us all that we're letting go of more guilt. And I do know that is I do recognize and have experienced that healing, and I am very grateful for that. And I do see my mom, for example, very differently, when I finally have not been locked in this power struggle with her, which I think I was for a while, where I really wanted everything to, I wanted her to change the trust, and to take these legal steps, and to do things with her bank accounts, and she didn't want it. She wouldn't even talk to me about it, and I was still going at thinking that I knew better, and out of fear, really, because I was, and also things to do with that you really would want. I mean, all of those things you would want, because you don't know if you're going to be left with these decisions that you don't know where anything is, and it's going to be hard because she's not doing this and she doesn't want to do it. But I still have to love her. I still have to meet her where she is.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think that was one of our other topics that we wanted to mention, was just, they are the brat. Ken talks about with one example with someone who was asking questions in the CD version of his books. Who had an example like that, where her mom would not, that there was tremendous conflict in the relationship because her mom didn't want her to take over things like her checkbook and all of the things that her mom couldn't do for herself, but she was not going to allow her daughter to help her either. And, that's kind of what I was running into with my mom. And Ken said, well, your mom is she's the bratty child in form right now, but it's again this full circle thing of the parent-child relationship, but your job still is to do the best you can, and to be and to make the purpose of this forgiveness, and to try to meet her wherever she is in the most loving way you can, without diminishing the power of her own mind to choose. And you don't know what's in her best interests, and you have to it certainly isn't loving to just bully our way through making it easier for ourselves. And so they are acting like bratty children, and we may be upset. I mean, it's normal to feel upset about that when they're supposed to be your parents, and that brings up from your past whenever you felt like they weren't you being good parents before, it kind of comes to the forefront, and so that's where it comes out of concealment, and you get to look at that and say, what, we're sisters, you know, trying to find our way home, just like everybody else walking this earth, you know.
Absolutely. I think that's you know, what you're doing there too is remembering you're not doing this on your own. But you're doing this with the Holy Spirit. You're doing this with your right mind, and that instantly takes you out of Susan, right, and above the battleground, and you can look with Jesus and see it. That's how you see it differently, because you're not in this body. You're not planted here. You can get to a point where you can see it differently. Someone would like to join the room. So Erica, let me see if I can do this, Erica. I'm going to try my best here. Okay. So I've said that you can join the room. So hopefully you can figure that out, because there's so much more for me to do here. But you're more than welcome to join us, Erica, if you can figure it out. And I'm just going to read Deborah's comment here. She says, remembering that events, situations, etc. are all symbols of the only one problem we have, believing we are separate from our Creator.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And that point that you made, Danielle, about we can't do this alone. You know, we really can't. I mean, it always in this, forgiveness is not something that we do alone. You know, it's really cultivating that relationship with our teacher, you know, and making our lives about a classroom means that we're learning from a new teacher, you know, that can lead us through this, and because we don't know anything from our perspective, you know.
It's funny because, you know, I think at a certain point I just assumed that it was always going to be big problems that I would need Jesus's help with. It wasn't going to be like the little things, like the things that you're mentioning about, like the details, right?
Right.
But then I remember that story of Helen looking for a coat, needing to find a coat.
Well, I mean, the truth is, I don't think we need it in form, you know, but we need Jesus to help us with our reactions to form. So there's Erica, I think.
Hi, Erica.
Hey, this is the first time I've done this. I had to like install a plugin.
No problem.
It was interesting. I was like, what's going on? I clicked out. But I was just actually going to say I have the same thing with my mom, because right now I just moved back. So me and my husband, we've been living in New York, and with my two kids, and it was like the Holy Spirit just guided me here because I have so much stuff I need to kind of bring up, and just, I know it's all about learning why I came back, because I would have never wanted to come back like that, because I left thinking, you know, I'm great, I'm in New York, I'm a designer, I'm going to do my thing, you know? And then I come back like, you know what, I don't know what I want to do, I don't know what anything's for, and, you know, and it's the same way with my mom, because she's actually, like, she holds on to stuff. I guess you could say she's a hoarder. So it's like there's this part of me that wants to come in and just, like, clean stuff up. And I can't. Like, I really can't, because she's really attached to her things.
Right.
And, like, you know, even things that are my things, like my old things. And it like just got to me, like, you know, I'm cleaning out my old room and I'm like throwing some of my stuff out, and she's got really upset with me. She's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're throwing away these things. And I'm like, but they're my things. And she's like, but you know, she's like, but I got these things. And I'm just like, but they're my, you know, and it was just one of those things where I had to give it up to the Holy Spirit. Like, I don't know what this is for. And I've just stopped trying to do it just because I don't want to have, like, I want peace more than I want to clean up right now. Like, so, I mean, of course I clean up, like, after ourselves, but, like, as far as the extra stuff that she has, it's like I can't see myself letting it go or trying to, because I know it's going to create a conflict. So I just, you know, whenever and it's one of those things where she's putting herself in a situation where she's unhappy. And I'm like, well, and I told her, I'm like, just be happy with all of your stuff then. If you want to keep it, be happy with it. If you're not happy with it, then you have to let some of it go. Like, I don't, you know, and it's one of those things where she knows it and she understands it, but she just can't get past, like, to actually start to let it go. She wants to keep it, but then complain about it and not want to let people over. And you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you don't want to have people come over because you're so ashamed, but you can't be happy with it, but you don't want to let it go. So she's like, you know, it's one of those things where she's kind of hurting herself.
Right.
And it hurts me to see her hurting herself.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
You're invested. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually really can relate to that, and I think it's
My husband's talking to me. I'm sorry.
yeah. So
Go ahead.
I mean, I think that's a perfect example of you've got to look at we've got to look at how we can't have it our way. We want to be kind, and so it's really I mean, even though she may be choosing to be unkind on some level to herself because in keeping this stuff because she doesn't want people to come over and everything. On the other hand, you can't make that decision we can't really make that decision for her, and all you can work with is your own interaction with her and being as loving as possible as you go through that with her, and being as present as you can, and watching watching how we want to change it. And I mean, I have a father-in-law too and my husband's mom died, and our house is filled with all of this. She was a hoarder, and my husband sort of has those tendencies, so this stuff is all in our house now, and he hasn't gone through it, and my father-in-law is still it's the same thing, and it's not even and a lot of it isn't even stuff that that was his, or things like that. So I know again it's people are dealing with their own wanting to cling to their past. And
yeah, and I mean, we all hoard stuff in different ways. Like some of us hoard emotions, and some of us hoard situations from the past. It's all about like the past or the future, but a lot of it's past stuff that we're holding on to, and that's how we're hoarding it. It may even be events or memories or
literal and figurative.
And for her, it's just she gets the things because she's grew up poor, and so now she just holds on to all these things. And I mean, she'll even say, yes, nothing's happy. The things that I have aren't even happy because they're crowded up, and I'm not happy. And she can say all of this, but she's still. It's like she wants to go through so many steps to even let it go. She doesn't want to give it away. She wants to somehow sell it in some complicated way. And I'm like, it's too complicated. Just, other people will love it. And she doesn't understand that giving is receiving either. She hasn't really quite, she knows, I say it to her and she says, yes, I agree. But she doesn't really get it. She doesn't get how it really is the same thing. So she thinks that she can't give it away. She thinks she has to get something for it.
Right. Well, I mean, it sounds like you're doing the right thing by just really working on, starting with the premise that you don't know anything.
I have no idea.
There really could be a better place to keep reminding ourselves of that. I mean, when all else fails, if we can remind ourselves that we don't know what's in our own best interest or anyone else's, then that's always a good place to be, and to put kindness at the forefront of making the relationship more important, with her more important, and the love that's there even when we can't see it between you, and to just and again trying to put your own interests aside and recognize that we don't know we really don't know what's in anybody else's best interest, because they have their own reasons for doing things and their own way that they're going to learn these lessons and wake up. And so
we like to think we know. Everybody wants to think they know, especially adults.
We don't even know our own. So.
Yeah, it's little kids are easier because they really don't know, and they say they don't know, and they're like, Mommy, I don't know, and so it's like, but we don't know either, and it's we're like.
Well, it depends on the little kid, right, Danielle?
Oh yeah, I've got to know
really little.
In my house.
Yeah, no, they start knowing real quick. They think they do, because my 4-year-old thinks she knows stuff too. But it's cute because that's kind of how God is looking at us. They're looking at us like, oh, they're so cute. They think they know.
We're all little children, though. There's no grown-ups here, Erica.
Yeah.
And you can always look at your own, use this by looking at your own reactions to it. I mean, you said that it hurts you to watch her. So, I mean, you can absolutely take that to the Holy Spirit and look at that. And Deborah has a comment. She's saying, loving no matter what the situation, perhaps letting her know you love her and that you're available to help in whatever serves her.
And by your defenselessness, by your just letting her, working on your own reactions, as Danielle said, and and as Deborah was saying, I mean, showing her that you love her really is showing her that whatever she's doing doesn't change your love for her, Yeah, her house may be a mess, and she may be choosing right now to do something kind of unloving for herself, but you know, you're still there for her, and you know, you're not going to you shut her out because of it, and you know, so you're still going to be unconditionally loving with it, and you know, and working with when you're feeling not loving about it. I mean, that's the Buddhist way. It isn't. We don't start from a loving place. That's, you know, that's where we end up with forgiveness, hopefully. But usually, it's our unforgiveness that shows us that we need help. You know.
Yeah.
That we've chosen the ego as our teacher. So.
Thanks so much for sharing, Erica.
And I read your book, the last one you wrote, and it's really good. I love it. I love how you have Jesus and his little sandals and
right.
Sunglasses.
Actually, wish it really was.
Yeah, he's always making me laugh. The Holy Spirit always, and that's usually what happens whenever I'm in a situation with my parents. Like I was saying, if they're bringing up something, I'm usually just joking, because if I listen to the Holy Spirit, it's usually giving me a joke. At least for me, it's always like, it's just so light. Like, you're not supposed to be taking any of it seriously, and that's the thing. It's like when you start to take it seriously, that's when it starts to get heavy. It starts to feel heavy, you know. And so, like, I joke with my mom all the time. I was joking with her the other day about she wants to hoard everything. Not even, you know, it's food too. So there was food that was like a year old, and she's like, I can't throw this out. It's a year old. And my nephew was here, and he's like, oh, throw it out. And I was like, no, you know, she likes to eat, you know, she likes to eat rotten food in her spare time. She eats expired food in her spare time. And my mom starts laughing. She's just cracking up. And I was like, yeah, she's tasted all this stuff.
But you said it without judgment, or she wouldn't have laughed, you know.
Yeah, no, right. I was like, oh, you know, she's eating that in her spare time. She's eating that rotten food, and she just started laughing.
Well, thank you. That's great.
That's great. Thanks for sharing, Erica.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've got just a couple minutes left. We're going to start. We'll start wrapping up. Bruce is saying that all of Susan's books are great, and I absolutely agree. So I'll just mention Susan's website again is forays-in-forgiveness.com. So you can read some of her blog posts there and get an idea of her writing style, which I absolutely adore. And her books are collections of essays about forgiveness and her relationship with Jesus. So definitely check them out. And Bruce had a comment here too. He says the challenge is to see how we're all symbols for aspects of our choice for one of two thought systems, moment to moment.
Right.
That's a great reminder.
And really, taking it seriously. You know what Erica was just saying, because the problem was taking it seriously. It wasn't that we really separated. It was just that it was a silly idea, but we took it. You know, we forgot to laugh.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You know, correction is Jesus always laughs in a nice way.
In a nice way, in a kind way. Yeah, absolutely. So just again, a reminder, next week we'll be coming together to share as we apply forgiveness throughout our week with our parents, or whatever special relationships are coming up for you. The 3 steps for forgiveness are let me just pull it up here. I'm not upset for the reason I think, which is from the workbook, lesson 5. And then moving into I could see peace instead of this, which is from the workbook. And then inviting the Holy Spirit, being willing to open up to that, to your right mind, and saying, please help me see this differently. Yeah.
And
go ahead.
People can, you know, try to think about that whenever you're becoming triggered over your relationship with your parents. And that doesn't mean, you know, even if you're just thinking about them, even if it's just something that's arising from the past, or your children, because it really is the same, it's intertwined. And as we were saying, it you know, they mirror each other. The authority problem really is at work in both of those relationships, and you know, it's all in need of healing. So even our thoughts that cross our minds are something that we can work with on forgiveness, and would be something good to share here.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Susan, and thanks for everyone who joined us tonight, and we'll see everyone again next week. Bye.